My name's Frank. If you're like me, you love equipment and you may have bought something very, very awesome called the DFAM by Moog. And when you opened up the box, you thought the same thing I did. This thing's amazing, it sounds amazing. This tempo key is very interesting. I wonder how I synchronize it to the rest of my stuff, because if you're like anybody else, you have more than just Moog gear. So this is for people that have a full setup. Now when I say full setup, I mean that you have a Pro Tools rig, you have some sort of Midi in-out function that would be a 5-DIN MIDI function, excuse me. But and you have a Mother-32 and you have the DFAM. If you don't have a Mother-32, then you really are missing the other half of the machine, as I would consider it. The DFAM is awesome, it's percussive, but at the same time, it's the Mother-32 just adds this vocal synthesizer effect that is missing otherwise. So let's jump right in so I don't waste your time. All right, guys, so here we are. I brought you up nice and close to the DFAM, and I got two Mother-32s on top, and as you can see over here, they're both going into a Midi I/O, which is being controlled by Pro Tools. So as you can immediately see, the two Mother-32s, they have a Midi input, but this guy does not. It is completely 100% analog. It works with nothing but control voltage. So if you have this Moog setup and you don't want to go along and start building an entire wall of synths with semi-modulars or Euro racks, then you want to find some sort of way to make this work natively with your setup. So what I'm going to show you is how to set it up from scratch. And as you can see, earlier I had a bunch of patch cables in here. I've ripped everything out so that when we set it up, you can understand where we're coming from. Okay, so let's get you a little bit closer. So by using the assign out, we can go along and create a trigger system that will completely control the clocking of the DFAM. Now, Moog does have a native clock format for it that is, I guess, directly cohesive to their system, and it's great, but it doesn't lock it to Pro Tools for you. So how do we go along and create a session that is going to get into here? That's what we're going to do. All right. So the first thing we have to do is set up the Mother-32 to send the signals. Now, if you're reading the instructions, it says that you can go along and take the assign out, assign it to be a clock, and then send that over to the advanced clock down here, which is the second from the bottom right there. So that's not what we're using. No, we want to have complete control. We want to be able to make the clock do whatever we want. We want to be able to automate it, you know, whatever we like. So what we're going to start with is setting up the Mother-32. Now, what you want to do is press, because we're going to get into setup mode. So you want to get into your reset, shift, set end, and 8. You want to press all 4 at the same time. Okay, so that's these two and these two. Press them at the same time. There we go. All right, so this light turns yellow, letting you know what page you're on. So you can click back and forth a little bit, and you'll see it only goes to 3. So page 1, page 2, page 3. We want to go on page 1, where we are assigning the Midi function to the assign out. So what we're going to do is we are using assignment, okay, number 13, which is to have control over CC1. That's the one you want. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to hold down Shift and press 5. Now it didn't move because I had already had it there, but if you go along and you move it around, you see it actually does move. So holding down Shift, we press 5, so that gives you function 13, which is CC1. So now you want to get out of there, so you're going to hold down Shift, go back to your keyboard, green light pops up, we're good. Okay? Take that, pause here if you need to take time and do that. All right? Now, you're going to need one of these trusty little guys. Now you're going to go from the assignment out, right here, and you're going to go down to the advanced clock. Presto. So with that, it's going to control the way this thing moves. So instead of it looking to its tempo meter, which goes all the way from like 10 BPM to 10,000 BPM, which would make it pretty much impossible to lock, like if you want to get your session at 90 BPM exactly. Well, good luck. Like this, we'll be able to. So I'm just going to leave that like that, and we're going to move to Pro Tools next. All right, guys. So as you can see, I have a Pro Tools session pulled up already. And it's kind of pre-configured, but I'm going to go through every single part of it so that you don't feel like, oh, you already have it all set up. All right. So what I have here is trying to put together a track of the DFAM without having any tempo synchronization. So this is what you end up with. You end up trying to get as close as possible, and then you end up either having to, you know, cut pieces, time to transient, you know, adjusting to the bars, or TCE, you know, just something that's going to be painful and arduous that you don't want to do. So, and then I have a track from the Mother-32 right here and right now I'm doing my session at 55 BPM, and so this was done with a MIDI sequence, so it's already perfectly timed. So what we need to do is get that DFAM clock to go along and give me a drum track to go with it, per se. So what we're going to do is, hold on, you're going to go along and you're going to create a MIDI track, you know, and that MIDI track, you can name it whatever you want. Now you're going to go along and you should have the outputs of your MIDI available. You're just going to go to the Mother-32 that you're trying to get to. You're just going to go out on channel 1, just like normal. Okay, so we have that. All right. Now, here's the interesting part. We're going to come back around here, and down here is where you want to get to. This is where you have that velocity, volume, and you have your controllers all the way at the bottom. And the very first one is mod wheel, number 1. That's CC1. And if it's not there, then you could just come in here into your add or remove controllers, and you can pretty much find anyone you're looking for. And then you could just add it over here and add it to your list. So like, let's say I want to add a foot control. Yeah, just add it right in. Bam. And now under my controllers, for controllers right there. So what we did is we used mod wheel 1, which is CC1. So let me go along and open this up. Now what you want to do is get your time synchronization to, standardly you would want it to what, 16th? Oh, let's see, did I do it by 8? Yeah, 16th will be fine. It gives you plenty of space to work with. I think in this case I did 30 seconds, but that's unnecessary. 16ths will do the trick just fine. So what you want to do is start your trigger sequence, and then just pretty much on, like in this case, just to show the DFAM's clocking capability, I went along and I put the first 4 bars going on the quarter notes. So you see 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, just to show that this thing is fully in control of the clock. And then here we end up going to a double time of the same pattern. So what this is going to do is that those first trigger notes is going to do 1, 2, 3, 4, you know, and it's going to move them, you know, 1, 2, 3, 4 very slowly. And then when it gets to this portion over here, it'll start to move it, you know, double time. So you want to make sure that you go along and you have it on C1, but you want to bring it all the way to 127. Now what that's going to do in translation to the Mother-32 is it is going to send out a trigger that is going to be 5 volts completely, okay? So because the advanced clock is looking for 0 and 5 volts. 0, 5 volts. 0, nothing, 5 volts, you get your trigger. So by doing this, you're forcing a trigger timing. So you're still getting the same thing. So here it is, we go along, we put that velocity all the way up. We want that 127, we want that full strength of that 5 volts to come out. So this is going to send the Midi signal out to CC1 through here, okay? And it's going to send that out through that assign, that CC1 controller. It's going to come out here in the form of +5 voltage at the rated interval of Pro Tools. Starting to see where we're going? All right. So if I go along and mute these out, you can start to see what we're talking about. So I'm going to move my sequence to the beginning, and I'm going to turn on run. Now you notice with that plugged in there, it didn't start playing. And I can move the tempo all day long and it's not moving. That's because it's already looking for clock data from somewhere else. So now when I go along and I click play, you see that clock is already moving. And now you see how the clock is moving faster. So now what this lets me do is that it lets me focus more on the performance of it and less on the timing, sequencing, all that crap. So now if I want to go along and just open up the cutoff on it, I can do that just fine. You know, if I want to make the notes longer, all that's easy. So let's see if I can get this all put together and let you actually hear what it sounds like when it's actually in synchronization. And as you notice, one thing, I can move this tempo all day long. It's not doing anything to it. See that? So Pro Tools is completely in control of the session. All right, guys, that about wraps things up. I thank you guys for tuning in, and hopefully you learned something new that you'll be able to take to your neck of the woods and be able to make it work for you. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. if you want, you can subscribe, even though I know that it's just the beginning. If you want more videos, maybe I'll show you how to synchronize to this guy and learn you a whole bunch of new tricks. Alright, until next time.